gone up from Baltimore to Harvard, where he read and was impressed by the Imagist poets, Ezra Pound, Amy Lowell, Carl Sandburg. He also made his acquaintance with the work of James Joyce, the 20th century writer who, though hardly given to English plain speech, would have the most enduring influence on him. After Harvard, he went back to his wandering, spending a year in Spain and studying architecture. But World War I was just over the border, and in 1916 he volunteered to drive for the Norton Hargis Ambulance Service, the same organization for which Hemingway and E. E. Cummings drove. He served in France and Italy, and then with the entry of America into the conflict, he enlisted in the AEF, and all told, got as much of a dose of modern war as he would need for the inspiration to portray its soldier victims in his first novel, Three Soldiers, 1921. The reticent writer was always disposed to the action. In the post-war 20s, he managed time and again to place himself in history's hotspots, whether the literary scene in New York and Paris, revolutionary Mexico after the death of Emiliano Zapata, the newly communist Soviet Union, or the nativist city of Boston, where he marched for the two imprisoned and condemned immigrant anarchists, Sacco and Vanzetti. He was writing all the time, of course. He published Rosinante to the Road Again, 1922, a book of essays about Spain, Manhattan Transfer, 1925, a dark impressionist portrait of New York and technical precursor to the U.S.A. novels, and pieces in The New Masses, The Dial, The Nation, and The New Republic attesting to his leftist sensibility. He was a diarist and kept up an active correspondence with a variety of colleagues including Edmund Wilson, Malcolm Cowley, Hemingway, and Fitzgerald. All of them worried in the world, all of them news junkies arguing politics and entangling themselves in the crises of civilization. Not until the Spanish Civil War would the profound difference between Dos Passos's humanist ideals and the doctrinaire idealism of many of his contemporaries become clear. The visible moment of separation seems to have occurred with the execution in Valencia of his friend José Robles, a Republican, by a communist firing squad. In his later life, Dos Passos was as archly conservative as he had been radical. What remained constant, like a moral compass course that never veered, was his despair of the fate of the single human being bent into service of the institutions of modern industrial society, whatever those institutions might be. In fact, the pervading vision of U.S.A. is of people dominated by institutions, which is to say, trapped in history. The novel is without a hero. We are given narratives of the lives of a dozen men and women: Joe Williams, a seaman; Mac, a typesetter; J. Ward Morehouse, a public relations man; Eleanor Stoddard, a stage designer; Dick Savage, a Harvard graduate and World War I ambulance driver; Charlie Anderson, a wartime air ace and inventor; Margot Dowling, an actress; Ben Compton, a union organizer, and so on, and watch 3 decades pass through them as they reach their prime and then age and flounder, either to die or to simply disappear, or, with 1 or 2 exceptions, to end in moral defeat. Living below the headlines, they're presented as ordinaries. Their lives can intersect, they can sometimes be charming or sympathetic, but they are always seen from above, as in satire, and all their irresolution, self-deceit, and haplessness, and their failure to find empowerment in love or social rebellion, is unconsoled by the moral structure of a plot. U.S.A. has no plot, only the movement forward of its multiple narratives under the presiding circumstances of history. The circumstances themselves are occasionally flashed to us by means of the so-called newsreels that interrupt the text with actual headlines from newspapers of the time, fragments of news stories, advertising slogans, and popular song lyrics, all popping up in rat-a-tat fashion like momentary garish illuminations, as from fireworks, of the American landscape. Early readers were dazzled, as they should have been, by these collages. But Dos Passos does not stop there. A third mode is the